In 2012, Google unveiled a prototype so radical, tech insiders called it a glimpse of science fiction made real. It was a wearable computer, dreamt up in a secret lab, meant to replace the smartphone entirely. The media went wild. Early adopters rushed to pay $1,500 just for a chance to belong, and the world braced for life to change forever. But beneath the hype, cracks were already forming. What made Google bet it all on a device the world was not truly ready for? And why did it all come crashing down so spectacularly? To answer that, we have to go back to the very beginning. In 2009, inside a nondescript building just off Google's main campus, a new kind of laboratory was taking shape. It was called Google X, and its mission was simple: make the impossible possible. Eric Schmidt, then Google's CEO, tapped Sebastian Thrun, a Stanford roboticist known for his work on self-driving cars, to lead this experiment in radical innovation. Thrun, together with Babak Parviz, an optics expert from the University of Washington, set out to answer a question that bordered on science fiction. What if you could access the world's information without ever looking down at a screen? The earliest days of Project Glass were less about sleek design and more about brute force engineering. The first working prototype, built in 2011, weighed nearly 8 pounds, closer to a helmet than a pair of glasses. Wires snaked around the frame, and the battery was so bulky it had to be strapped to the user's belt. Yet in that awkward, heavy contraption, the team saw a future where technology would disappear into everyday life. Inside Google X, the mood was restless and electric. Engineers and designers worked side by side, sketching out ideas on whiteboards and cobbling together hardware from spare parts. Thrun and Parviz pushed their team to shrink every component: the display, the camera, the battery, the processor. Each gram shaved off meant another step towards something someone might actually want to wear. The challenge was enormous: packing a full computer, a camera, a microphone, and a tiny prism display into a device lighter than a pair of sunglasses. There were no guarantees, only questions. Could they build a battery small enough to fit behind an ear, yet powerful enough to last through a day? Could the optics deliver a crisp image without blocking a user's view? And perhaps most daunting of all, could the device blend into daily life without turning its wearer into a walking science experiment? The culture at Google X encouraged big bets and fast failures. Thrun called it a moonshot factory. Hold on a minute. If you're enjoying what you see so far, I hope you'll consider subscribing. It helps me preserve the history of these untold tech stories. Now, let's continue. A place where the cost of playing it safe was higher than the risk of going too far. Parviz, obsessed with miniaturization, led long debates about the trade-offs between weight, comfort, and functionality. The team's guiding principle was to invent first and worry about mass production later. That urgency and the relentless drive to shrink the impossible into the ordinary would shape every decision that followed. By 2011, the prototype had dropped from 8 pounds to something that could be worn, but only just. The dream was still outpacing the hardware. Yet in the halls of Google X, optimism ran high. What they were building was not just a new gadget. It was a first step toward a world where technology could vanish into the background, always present, but never in the way. And as the team prepared for a public reveal, the pressure to turn this engineering marvel into a market-ready product was about to collide with reality. April 2012. A concept video lands online, and for a moment, the world glimpses a future that feels like science fiction. The video follows a man through a typical New York day. Notifications float in the air, directions appear as he walks, and a simple voice command snaps a photo. The message is clear. This is not just another gadget. It is a vision of a world where technology dissolves into daily life, always present, but never in the way. In June, at the Google I/O Developer Conference, Sergey Brin steps onto the stage, unmistakable in his own prototype glass. Suddenly, the auditorium screens flicker to life. A live video feed appears, not from a camera crew, but from a team of skydivers leaping out of a blimp high above San Francisco. Each wears a glass unit, streaming their point of view as they hurtle toward the city. The feed jumps from sky to rooftop as the team lands, hands off a package to BMX riders, then to climbers rappelling down the side of the Moscone Center. The crowd erupts. It feels like a page torn from a cyberpunk novel, made real before their eyes. The effect is pure spectacle. Behind the scenes, the stunt nearly falls apart. The video link drops midair, and for a tense moment the tech crew scrambles to restore the connection. Brin orchestrated the event backstage and kept his cool. He later told reporters that this was not just a product launch. This was a leap into the future. Let's see if we land on our feet. Google's strategy is as bold as the spectacle itself. Glass is not released to the public. Instead, only select developers called explorers can pre-order the device. The price is $1,500. By making glass rare and expensive, Google transforms it into a status symbol. Tech journalists, celebrities, and influencers clamor for a chance to join the club. Media coverage reaches a fever pitch. Headlines gush about the end of the smartphone era and the dawn of wearable computing. The effect is electric. Glass becomes the most talked about piece of technology on the planet, despite almost no one having actually used it. Photos of Sergey Brin riding the New York subway in glass go viral. Fashion brands court Google for collaborations. At New York Fashion Week, models strut the runway wearing glass. For a brief window, being seen in glass means being part of the future. It seems just out of reach for everyone else. All the while, the promise is intoxicating. The idea that you could capture a moment, get directions, or translate a sign with a glance feels like magic. For developers, the chance to shape the next great computing platform is irresistible. The hype machine spins faster and faster, setting expectations sky high. In the span of a few months, glass goes from secret prototype to cultural phenomenon. The world is ready to believe. But as the buzz crescendos, few stop to ask whether the dream is actually ready for the world. The promise of Google Glass rested on a simple premise: seamless, ever-present technology. But the reality was a device at war with its own hardware. The Explorer Edition shipped with a 570 mAh battery, barely enough to last 4 hours under normal use. Even light tasks like checking notifications or snapping a few photos could drain it before lunch. Video recording, one of Glass's most hyped features, would cut that time in half. Users learned quickly to carry a charger or risk being stranded with a dead device strapped to their face. Inside the frame, a Texas Instruments OMAP 4430 processor struggled to keep up. This chip, originally designed for smartphones, was never meant to power a wearable display, camera, microphone, and wireless radios in such a tiny space. The result was a device that ran hot, sometimes uncomfortably so. Early adopters described the sensation of warm plastic pressing against their temple, a constant reminder of the engineering compromise beneath the futuristic exterior. Extended use could leave red marks on the skin. In some cases, the unit would simply shut down to avoid overheating, forcing users to wait for it to cool off before resuming even basic tasks. The optical display, a small plastic prism, projected information just above the user's right eye. In theory, this created a heads-up experience, directions, messages, and search results floating in the corner of vision. In practice, the display was tiny, with limited resolution and poor visibility in bright sunlight. Reading anything longer than a short text required squinting or awkward head movements. For anyone with prescription glasses, the fit was an exercise in frustration. Attachments were available, but they added bulk and rarely aligned comfortably with existing frames. Interaction was another sticking point. Glass relied on a combination of voice commands and a touch-sensitive strip along the right arm. Saying, "Okay, glass," was supposed to unlock a world of hands-free convenience, but the microphone often misheard commands, especially in noisy environments. The touchpad, meant for swiping through menus, was overly sensitive and inconsistent. Accidental taps or swipes could trigger unwanted actions, while intended gestures sometimes failed to register at all. For many, the promise of effortless control gave way to a series of awkward, half-baked interactions. All these limitations added up. The battery's short life meant constant anxiety about power. The processor's heat made extended use uncomfortable, sometimes even embarrassing. The display and controls fell short of the effortless, magical experience promised in concept videos. Instead of disappearing into the background, the technology demanded constant attention and patience. For early adopters, frustration replaced excitement. The vision of invisible computing collided with the hard limits of miniaturization, battery chemistry, and mobile processors. Each engineering compromise became a daily reminder that the dream was still out of reach. As these technical frustrations mounted, they set the stage for a deeper problem, one that couldn't be solved with a software update or new hardware revision. The physical shortcomings of glass didn't just inconvenience users. They amplified every awkward encounter in public, fueling the discomfort and suspicion that would soon define its reputation. A single strip of titanium and glass, perched above the right eye, set off a cultural firestorm. The moment Google Glass left the hands of engineers and entered public spaces, it became more than a gadget. It became a provocation. In coffee shops, on city streets, and especially in bars, the device triggered an immediate sense of unease. The problem was not just the look or the price. It was the camera, always pointed forward, with no clear signal when it was recording. For bystanders, the uncertainty was unsettling. Was that person checking the weather or quietly filming everyone in the room? By late 2013, the backlash had a name: glasshole. A word born on tech blogs and sharpened by social media, became shorthand for anyone who wore glass in public and ignored the discomfort of those around them. The insult stuck, fueled by stories of wearers acting entitled or oblivious to social norms. Bars and restaurants across San Francisco began posting signs that read, "No glass allowed." The bans were not about technology. They were about trust. The tension boiled over one night in February 2014 at Molotov's, a dive bar in San Francisco's Lower Haight. Sarah Slocum, a social media consultant and glass explorer, walked in wearing her headset. Within minutes, she found herself surrounded by angry patrons. Accusations flew. People demanded she remove the device, convinced she was filming them without consent. Slocum said she started recording only after being harassed, but the confrontation escalated. Someone snatched glass off her face and ran. Her purse disappeared in the chaos. Video posted online captured shouts of, "You're killing the city," a phrase loaded with resentment toward tech's growing influence in San Francisco. The incident at Molotov's ricocheted through news outlets and social media, igniting a national debate. For some, glass was a symbol of innovation and progress. For others, it was a sign of privilege, arrogance, and a disregard for privacy. The device's very presence became a lightning rod for deeper anxieties about surveillance, gentrification, and the changing character of urban life. Bar staff, caught in the crossfire, voiced frustration. People do not like being watched. If you cannot respect their privacy, you are not welcome here. As videos and memes spread, so did the bans. Theaters, gyms, and casinos joined the list of places where glass was forbidden. Advocacy groups petitioned lawmakers to regulate wearable cameras, while Google scrambled to issue etiquette guides urging explorers to avoid being glass holes. But the damage was done. The device's reputation was toxic. Even those who wore glass for practical reasons, navigating, messaging, or documenting their day, found themselves targets of suspicion or outright hostility. What began as a technical marvel had become a social pariah. The absence of a visible recording indicator transformed glass from a tool into a threat. The promise of seamless, ever-present technology collided with the reality of human boundaries. In the end, it was not the hardware that doomed glass in the public eye. It was the feeling that anyone, at any moment, could be watching. Developers were once the heartbeat of Google Glass. In the first year, hundreds of third-party apps, called glassware, filled the directory, each promising to unlock new ways to use the device. But by late 2014, the momentum had all but vanished. The platform's most creative minds began to walk away, frustrated by mounting technical obstacles and a shrinking audience. Google restricted access to key features like the camera and sensors, making it harder for developers to build anything new. Updates to the Glass development kit slowed to a crawl, and the company's silence about future plans only deepened the uncertainty. The numbers told a bleak story. At its peak, Glass had about 200 active glassware apps, but by early 2015, fewer than 50 remained regularly updated. Rough estimates suggest that over 75% of developers abandoned their projects within 2 years. The user base never grew beyond roughly 8,000 units, according to leaked Foxconn manufacturing reports. With a $1,500 price tag and high production costs, Glass could not attract new buyers or keep existing ones engaged. Developers who once saw an open frontier now found themselves building for a ghost town. Inside Google, the cost overruns and lack of consumer traction became impossible to ignore. The ecosystem was collapsing under its own weight, and every metric pointed in the same direction. The dream was unsustainable. The final blow would come soon, but the exodus of developers had already sent a clear message. No amount of hype could fill a platform that nobody wanted to build for. On January 15, 2015, Google announced the end of Glass as a consumer product. The decision was not the result of a single dramatic confrontation, but the outcome of months of hard numbers and sobering internal reviews. Sales had stalled at fewer than 20,000 units, returns piled up, and the project had burned through nearly $900 million. The Explorer edition was quietly pulled from shelves, and the team behind Glass was told to stand down. Inside Google, the mood was heavy. Sergey Brin, who had championed Glass from the start, faced mounting pressure as the project's public image collapsed. Astro Teller, head of Google X, had long pushed for a more cautious approach, warning that the device was not ready for the world outside the lab. Reports suggest creative disagreements played out behind closed doors, with Teller urging a retreat from the consumer spotlight and Brin still hoping for a breakthrough. With the Explorer program finished, Google handed the remains of Glass to Tony Fadell, known for his work on the iPod and Nest. Fadell's mandate was clear: stop chasing the dream of a mass-market gadget and rethink the project from the ground up. Under his stewardship, the focus would shift away from splashy launches and toward careful, deliberate development. For the original team, it was a bitter end to years of ambition. The dream had hit a wall, and the future of Glass would be decided far from the headlines. Smart glasses now blend into daily life, discreet and familiar, yet every lens comes with a lesson. As tech giants race to build the next digital overlay, public trust and privacy shape what's possible. The world finally wears what it once rejected, but each step forward still asks, How much of ourselves are we willing to share for the sake of progress? Thank you for watching. I'd be genuinely interested in hearing your opinion on this in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this, please make sure to subscribe. There's much more to come.